And then I put down the glass on the bar. Boom! He jumps about 3 feet in the air, and he turns around, and I'm bracing. I'm thinking he's an old guy, but like I said, he's a thick SOB, and he was known to sucker punch, and so I'm ready for it. And he's back, and his ass is shaking. He's grabbing bottles, and he puts about 4 or 5 bottles down on the table. He starts pouring drinks, and we just start drinking them down.
Oh my goodness!
And that was it. And, I couldn't walk the next morning. I did go to a barn party with him, and I only have vague memories of it. But he wanted to see me the next morning for coffee and donuts, and I told him to hold on to donuts, just the coffee. I was family, and so we go, and we get it done in about a half an hour. I mean, it's literally the whole thing. And but no one, I don't think, ever drank with him to try to get a deal done. I don't think anyone. And to me, I figured I was going nowhere anyway, and I was so pissed. I spent my own money and my own time, and I was out there and wasting all that time. Shit, if he wanted to throw down with me, I was more than happy.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Donut Bag, part of the Pod Hub Network. In this episode, I welcome back former Pitt great, NFL player, super agent, and author Ralph Cindrich. We talk about his thoughts on the Super Bowl, what he thinks about the Antonio Brown situation. Then we talk about his days at Pitt. As an agent in the 80s, he was one of the most powerful men in sports. He has some crazy stories, and they're all in his book titled NFL Brawler. Anyway, the Donut Bag starts right now. All right, the Super Bowl is concluded, and the NFL season is over, but there's so much to talk about. With me to talk about it, once again, is Ralph Cindrich. He is a star player, agent. I could spend half an hour just talking about all your accomplishments. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. Don't call me sir. It makes me feel too old.
So what did you think about the Super Bowl?
I really enjoyed the Super Bowl. I played defense. I heard all the reports out there, lowest ratings ever. People didn't like it. Maybe they didn't like Brady, who I like, or the Patriots. I like them because I played with the Patriots, and so to me, I thought it was a defensive game. I loved what St. Louis and my old coach, Wade Phillips, defensive coordinator, was doing to Brady and how they bottled him up. Of course, they had the 2 big studs inside, defensive tackles, who were able to control that some. And so, it was a game of old in my mind, but no one else saw it that way. And, it was one of the few I was able to watch by myself, which I thoroughly enjoyed, at least the whole second half by myself. And so I was able to get into the game, and I liked it.
Good. Now, it seemed like the Rams were supposed to have such a great offense, and they did nothing. Do you think because it was their first time in the Super Bowl that they just got too caught up in all the hoopla? I just think that they have a young quarterback, and he needed to make a few more plays. You have to have something a little bit special out of that position as a general rule to be able to come away with a win there. And Brady was getting bottled up, and he made a few plays, and of course with Edelman, it was a filler on it all, and so. I just think with the Rams, they'll be back. They just need a little more time. Yeah, and isn't it amazing what the Patriots have done? I mean, we may never see anything like this again in the modern era with all their championships in such a short amount of time.
It is amazing, when you look and you want to talk about stars. I mean, there just aren't a lot of stars that you can point to on that team. And I don't want to get into any of the things that go with playing as a team and all the rest, but they do. It is a team game, and that's how they play. And you look and you say, okay, what if Antonio Brown would have been on that team? Would it have been as good or better? And certainly he would have offered a whole nother dimension, but I don't know how you can take away from the team play of that team in that game.
Yeah, speaking of Antonio Brown, I mean that is actually a question that people are asking in Pittsburgh is how would these players kind of it seems like Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell, they're kind of me first players. How would they work in an environment like New England where it's all about the team? Do you think they would conform to the team concept?
No, not at all. Maybe at the beginning, some, but I would see them as a detriment to that team. They perhaps during the season, a couple of games would go in the favor of the Patriots solely because of those guys. But the overall picture of it all, I mean, I just don't see players wanting to be, especially offensive linemen, wanting to block for those guys. And in my view, it tears the heart out of the team concept. And when you get into close games and you're looking at each other, it becomes relevant, and I think you end up on the losing side.
Is quitting on your team almost the worst thing you could do as a teammate? Because that's basically what he did that last game.
I think quitting is almost the worst thing you can do in any sport, whether you're on a wrestling mat and you quit, or you're on a football field, you quit, or you quit on your team. To me, it is I don't know if it's an unforgivable sin. Certainly, in my view, in sports, a mortal sin.
Who do you think is most at fault for this whole situation? There's been so much talk about, it's Ben Roethlisberger's fault, it's the coach, it's the owner. It's like, well, what about the guy that decided not to show up?
That's the way I view it. I mean, it's one of those, you're all men at this stage, and you know what you're supposed to do. You know your responsibilities and who your duty is to. And I think it's first to the team, above yourself. And you see selfless players come across that way. And it's very difficult to do, easy to say. But these guys are so far removed from it that it tends to have a ill effect on the team, and it's a poison to the team.
Yeah. So the reports are that he won't even return the calls of the coach and the owner, which I just think is horrible. Especially the owner. He's paying his paycheck, paying him millions of dollars. Has that ever happened to any of your clients that they had a problem and the team tried to contact him and he didn't want to answer back?
Never. If it did, they wouldn't be my client. And I'm not saying that facetiously. I mean, it's just I wouldn't be able to deal with anyone that way. You have a fiduciary duty to them, the highest in law, and you're supposed to give them the best advice available, and you're supposed to know what's going on in your business, what your duties and obligations are in terms of advising clients. Well, certainly clients, you can have a client or two that won't follow your advice, but no, I've never had anything even close to that. Generally, when I sit down and talk with someone, I came off as a square. I was all football, and I was, doing the right thing. And here's what you do. Here's what you were. If you're going out to work out for the pros at the combine and whatever, it's attention to detail, and I don't think that any of it can be overlooked. This, though, is so far beyond it, it's not even within the realm of being questionable.
Yeah. Mike Tomlin is also getting a lot of blame for how he's handled this. They're basically saying that they allowed this to happen. Have you ever seen a situation in your playing career or with your clients where a coach just, there's different types of coaches, I'm sure, some that are very strict and some that aren't, but how much blame should Tomlin get for this?
That's a difficult call. I played for Bum Phillips, and Bum Phillips coached like Mike Tomlin. I mean, he expected to have men on the field, leaders in the locker room, and the leaders on the Steelers team can only do so much. When you have that type of mentality of a player who is willing to walk on the team, how do you change it? When do you change it? Sometimes a guy will conform as long as everything's going great, and you go right into the Super Bowl and win it. But it can raise its ugly head, which happened here. So I don't know that it's that preventable. I think Belichick may have had a player or two of that ilk, and he ended up just getting rid of them and moving on. But it's tough because those two guys are extremely talented and Hall of Fame ability. I would never vote them in the Hall of Fame myself, but of that type of ability.
Yeah, we'll see. Do you think he'll end up back with the team, or do you think they'll just try to get rid of him regardless of what return they get in a trade?
I don't know how you can have him come back on the team. And I know Art Rooney going back to when before he was the owner of it. He was in a capacity that his dad Dan put him in, and his granddad the chief. So we go back that far, and much more strong-willed than you might expect. And someone, I guess, from my perspective of knowing what I've known about the family and everything else, as difficult a bullet it would be to take, I just don't see how you go forward with certainly, well, in my mind, either one of the guys.
Yeah. Now, one thing I just realized I committed a horrible sin. I didn't mention your book, NFL Brawler, which is, for any sports fan, especially any Pittsburgh fan, I think they need to get this book because it sounds like there are so many interesting stories in there. But I saw an excerpt about Art Rooney and your dealings with him, and what was your relationship with the Rooneys? I know it sounds like you had a really special relationship with Art.
Yes, and I felt like it started with the chief, where we were able to maybe see eye to eye on some things when I cost them a third round. I actually cost them under the Chiefs rule 2 third-round draft choices. But during that time, when the chief called me in, it was specifically to let me know that he wanted to talk to me. It wasn't a lecture or anything. He wanted to talk to me to thank me for having his grandson, Art, who he knew was extremely talented and was leaning toward law very, very in a strong way at that time. And getting him involved in football started to pick his interest some in wanting to be involved more with the Steelers. And the chief, whether it was right or wrong, I think gave me a little bit of a credit there. And I talk about that in the book and in the letter that I sent to Dan Rooney that was sent to the chief to make sure that he was okay with it. So, I've gone against the Steelers and cost them actually 2 third-round draft choices, and they treated me better than good. And I would have never been able to do that, but they did. So I have a tremendous amount of respect for them, and anytime I can defend them, I do.
Yeah, that says a lot about how they are if you went against them and they still respect you. So that's great. But so the chief was the owner, and then it was Dan, and now it's his grandson Art, and people are criticizing him too. They're also blaming him for allowing this Antonio Brown situation to get out of control. Do you think Art is partially at blame here?
No, I don't. I think it comes into view. He's the guy that's overall responsible for anything that goes on. So in that sense, yes. But I mean, he's not out on the field or in the locker room to the extent to where he's controlling the conduct of these guys. And I don't think anyone is directly responsible. I mean, I think you have these guys, they fit in with the team, and you have a championship team because they're just exceptional in terms of their talent. But sometimes things get wacky in the locker room.
Let's switch gears. recently on Twitter, you shared a letter from Dan Marino that he sent to you. It looked like that he was about to choose Pitt. Look